Hi, I'm Jen from Shabby Fabrics. I have something really exciting to show you today. I've come up with a no hand sewing technique for traditional English paper piecing. Now don't go running for the hills, because I know with traditional English paper piecing, that's mostly hand sewing, but I've come up with a technique where you will be able to do the whole thing on your sewing machine. Just look at these projects back here. We have the Scandi 2 wall hanging. Scandi 2, by the way, is a holiday collection from Andover Fabrics. I'm in love with this collection. It's very Scandinavian, thus the name Scandi, of course. Very European. The fabric has kind of a flat finish to it, not a lot of shine at all. And that's what I think I love about it. It's very kind of vintage, very classic, sophisticated Christmas. We also have the table runner. Now, a few of the other things you may see around the set here, this is the no-sew quilted Christmas ornament. You'll be able to make those out of the scraps for making the six-pointed stars. That is a previously recorded video that you can see on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, so that way you always know when we do have new videos. So there's another one of the no-sew quilted Christmas ornaments. And just look at this gorgeous Christmas tree skirt. This is a purchasable pattern. We'll also have a kit available. It's another star design to complement the Scandi 2 projects. But more information about that a little bit later. Let's get started about the six-pointed star. Let's start first with what you'll need to do this. Now, of course, we're going to have kits available, so you can just pick that up versus running around town and trying to buy all these various things that you might need. So let's go over what you will need. You'll definitely need the plastic template. This is a see-through template that, this is the 2-inch pointed star template. This is how you'll be able to determine where you want to cut on your actual fabric to make the design. Now, I want you to notice that this fabric, this star, and this star are made out of the exact same fabric. Isn't that different? It's just where we chose to cut our diamonds out of gave us the various shapes. Same with these here, same fabric. Isn't that cool? How it looks completely different. And then here, that's that's the same fabric. So it's the same technique for all 3 fabrics, or whatever fabric you may choose to do. You might be using a completely separate fabric. Now, I found a really neat tool on the market from Marty Michelle. It's called the Magic Mirror. It's actually been out for a long time. You might even have one in your quilting room or craft room. Let me show you how this works. Because when we wanted to make our stars, we were trying to determine, well, if I put my template here and I cut here, what design will that give me? And you're kind of guessing to a certain degree. Now, I want you to notice that on the template, and it may be a little bit hard to see, but let's give you a close-up of that. There's some dashed lines. What the dashed lines represent is that's the 1/4-inch seam. So when you put your template down onto your fabric like this, where that dashed line is represents everything inside the dashed line is what you will actually see. So, of course, outside here isn't going to be the finished diamond, but it's from the dash line inward. That's what you'll see. But there's another tool. Let me show you about the Magic Mirror. This is so cool. So this kind of shows you what you're going to get now. Now, the Magic Mirror will just open up, so you can do a variety of sizes. What I like to do is I want to put one of my template pieces. This is the English paper piecing packet of 52-inch 6-pointed stars. You'll definitely need that to do this project, and you only need 1 packet. So I put one of those wedges inside like this so that I make sure the opening of my mirrors is exactly what I will realistically have. Now watch as I move. I'm not going to open or close this. I'm going to try to hold it steady. So watch how the design begins to change, and that's how you will determine the look you want. So let's say isn't that cool right there? Maybe you want that look right there. I think that's a really neat look. So let's look at that. If that's what we want, let's just make sure we're right where we want to be. If you want that design, what you're going to do is when you put your template up there, you see that hole in the template? you would put the whole of the template right there. Now, if I want to mark that, so that I definitely don't want that to shift, I can use my little pen right there. Have a little mark right there. Well, let's look, check at that one more time. Yep, it's about right in the middle of that right there. So I would just put that here like this, and I would go ahead and I would go in and I would mark my fabric. And I'm going to use the friction pen. Now, you don't have to use the friction pen. You could just go in at this point with your rotary cutter like this and just cut it. But you might be doing this project with little ones where you're not comfortable with the rotary cutter. I certainly wouldn't have been with when my kids were younger. I am now that they're older. But you don't have to draw. That's just an option. But you can also just hold this in place and rotary cut, so that there are some options for you. The nice thing about using the rotary cutter is that I don't have to come in. Like if I was using scissors, I would have to cut, 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 cut. And now I've kind of spoiled this area. So there is a lot of reason to maybe think about using a rotary cutter versus the scissors. So let's see, did I get a clean cut on that? No, I did not. Well, let's just cut across those lines real quick here, just for the sake of time. You get the idea, though. A little bit of an awkward angle with that rotary cutter. Let's just cut that out completely. So what you'll do, now that we've established where we want to start that cut, you will go with your template and you will repeat that. You're going to go back and find, see the repeat of the fabric? Let's put the mirror aside for now. And that the repeat of the fabric appears to be here. So if that's what we did before, you see how you're trying to replicate what you just did and cut them all out exactly the same, which creates the center. So now that you understand that process, take your time when this is called fussy cutting, when you're fussy cutting your points, because this is going to determine how beautiful the kind of star snowflake look is by how carefully you line up each of the 6 points exactly the same. So once that's done, then let's put that aside because we've already done that ahead of time, cut one out ahead of time. I recommend that you add some starch to this. We actually have sizing. It's probably better to use sizing actually than starch because starch can get kind of flaky. It just gives it a little more body. So let's go ahead and do that right now and get that step out of the way. Get it good and wet. And let's get that so it has a little bit more body to it. Just a little bit easier to work with. Now before I go on and show you the no hand sewing method of English paper piecing, I want to show you how it's traditionally done. Now traditionally, you have your papers and you have your fabric. You have needle and thread. You will literally turn this fabric over the paper, and with a needle and thread, which I've done ahead of time here. See if I have a knot in there. Nope, I don't. With needle and thread, and you'd actually want to use probably a brighter colored thread so you can easily see it. You'll actually come in, trying to hold all this together, and you'll come in like this. Actually, yep. And you're going to run long basting stitches because these will get pulled out. So you can already see it's definitely kind of a little bit of a handful to hang on to the fabric and to hang on to the template and have the template not shift. Some people actually pin the template to the fabric, and you'll run these long basting stitches. We've improved on that. Let me show you what has come along that I absolutely love. It's from Sew Line, and it's a glue pen. So let me cut this, and let me show you how slick this is. Let's show you the product real quick. It's a Sew Line, and it comes with a refill in it. This is so slick. It takes away the basting, so that step's already gone. So that is not new. I've seen other ladies doing this. The step beyond that is what we came up with, and I'm excited to show that, and I will be showing that to you shortly. But let me show you how to use this glue pen. Okay, step one is I don't want to chase this template around this. So I put just a little bit of a stripe of glue right there, and I'm going to center that. Let's just repress that. Let me turn that edge under for that demonstration, but let's repress that. So we're going to glue that down just like this. No, I got a little stray thread there. Okay. Now, with our glue pen, we're going to put a little stripe there, and we're just going to fold that over. Isn't that so slick and easy? Done. That you're ready to move on to the next side. Same, put a little bit of glue, and be sure to put some on the fabric where you just were, otherwise it's not going to stick there. So that's down. Now you can iron as you go too. If you really, really, really want that down, you can iron as you go. Now let's come to this side. Every now and again, you're going to get a few stray threads. Just cut them away. Let's again put our glue down. And you're going to have that little flap there. Don't worry about that. I will show you exactly what to do with that little flap. Okay, and then the last side, same. Okay, let's press that down. Okay, so that's what that looks like right now. Now, if you like hand sewing, let me show you what to do. Because, sometimes you're going to be on a road trip or on an airplane and you don't have your sewing machine. So you want to do the hand sewing. You would actually get two pieces. Let's see, one of them still has the paper in there. Now, I trimmed the little flaps away. You have an option here. You can deal with these at the very end, and they kind of just typically, see how that kind of just nests? Let's put this where it belongs, right there. Do you see how I can put those together? Now these don't match up because this was already a predetermined 6-point star, so these don't match up, so don't worry about that. I chose a different spot in my fabric than we chose for the sample, so that's why they don't match up. Don't worry, they will match up when we get ready to do our star. But you can either trim this away now. In fact, let me show you how to do that. I like to use a little bit of Fray Check. Fray Check is my friend, but you use it like hot sauce, just a little bit at a time. If you want to trim this away, notice how I come in with my scissors parallel to the project and underneath, and I put a little bit of Fray Check in there, and I'm going to let that dry. That's one approach. Some people love that. They love the Fray Check. They use the Fray Check. Some people don't like Fray Check. If you don't like Fray Check, leave the little flap out like this. By the time you sew the next piece to it, you can kind of keep those flaps underneath there like that. You see how that happens? So it's your preference, whatever you want to do with that. So now that just needs to dry. But let's work on this end while that's drying. And I'll show you, if you like to do English paper piecing by hand, this is how you would actually sew this together. Then I'm going to show you how to do this on the machine. So let's get that threaded. Okay, and we'll get a good knot tied. Now what I'm using here is the kimono silk thread. That may be a question that you have. What do you do when the fabric, as you can see, is red and cream? What thread would you choose in that case? What I find with the kimono silk thread, and I don't know if you can see it right here, is it just about blends into anything. I don't think you can go too wrong. When I do have a fabric that's maybe red and cream, I tend to go with the cream because it's easier for me to hide the cream than it is to hide a red. So that's just something to think about when you are trying to decide on a thread color when there is a multicolored fabric. Okay, so you want to do the English paper piecing by hand. Let me show you how to do that, and then we're going to move on to the no hand sewing method. which is my new favorite method right now. So let's see here. Let's start down at this point. Now you would put, notice the paper is still in here. You're going to put them just like this, right sides together. With your thread, you're coming in, I want you to see that, and I'm picking up the fabric, but I'm not picking up, in fact, let me hide that. Let me go in there real quick. I'm going to hide that knot. See how I'm doing that? Okay, now that that's hidden, I'm going to come up here, and I'm just picking up the fabric, but not the paper. The paper has to come out. So you don't want to be sewing into the paper. Now I'll just keep coming across like this with very small stitches all the way across. Can you see that? And we'll just keep marching all the way across. There you go. I'll put in just a couple more, and then I'm going to show you what that's going to look like. And you can imagine just all the way across. It's very straightforward, and it's fun. But some people just don't like hand sewing, or they don't have time. For those folks, this next part is for you. One more stitch here, and of course, we would just keep going till we were done. You would tie off as normal. Okay, let me show you what that looks like. Do you see how it's together now? And there we go. See how it's together? And of course, as you stitch all the way down, this will be together. And then when you put the next unit on, again, you'd go right sides together like this, whip stitch, pivot, whip stitch, pivot all the way around. That's the hand sewing approach to this. We're now going to go ahead, I'm going to cut that apart because I need that. Let me show you how we're going to do this with the no-sew approach. Okay, with the no-sew approach, let's put this, make sure I've got the correct pieces. I do. With the no-sew approach, you saw me prepare the shapes using the template. I cut that out. We used the glue pen. In fact, I'll close that up right now so it doesn't dry out. We used the glue pen and folded everything together. Now, before I remove the papers, I went ahead and I added more sizing. I wanted to make sure that is absolutely down, and we pressed it. Wow, that's just really down there now. Because we want that to hold its shape and be good and stiff, so when we sew this by machine, it doesn't lose its shape. So once we let that cool, then you're just going to go ahead and you'll begin to remove the papers. So again, if you want to do the Fray Check method, go ahead and trim that off now, put a little bit of Fray Check, and then remove the papers. If you want this flap here, leave that here, and we'll go in now, and we just have to kind of basically unwrap this thing, and we try to disturb it as little as possible. Okay, and these papers are reusable. You don't throw them away. You can absolutely use these again and again and again. Isn't that great? So you really only need to buy the papers one time. So let's get that out. Let's take this back to our pressing mat. Make sure everything is exactly where we want it to be. And let's press again. Okay, fantastic. Now, that's how we prepare that. We've done this ahead of time. Oh, there's one more that has the paper. Let me take that out real quick. I didn't know that was in there. Let's starch that. Let's do that whole process again real quick. Let's get in there. I think the rest of these have their paper out. Yes, they do. Okay, so we let that dry. We went ahead and did the Fray Check method. We didn't want to have a lot of bulk at the point. We really wanted this to come together as cleanly as possible. And when you do have these little flaps underneath here, you can see how that's, well, you know, an extra layer of fabric. And then if this has a flap, That's another layer of fabric, and this one has a flap. It begins to kind of build almost a little bit of a mound in the center. So just know if you do leave the little flap there, it might be slightly raised in the center. That's why we chose for the Fray Check method, because I like it to lie nice and flat. All right, so let's peel this off, and then we will position this onto our background fabric, and we'll get going on our star. And what's so fun is when you start putting the shapes together and seeing it, the star take shape. It's exciting. Okay, and we'll take this back to the ironing board again. Make sure we're not distorting anything. Give it a nice good press. And if you need to make any adjustments, you know, you're going to want to do that now. Okay. Might trim off just a little bit more right there. All right, now we have our 6 points ready to go. Let's move this out of the way so you can see what we're doing here. Clean up just a little bit. Okay. So you've got your background fabric, and of course you already know this, but the quickest way to find center is just to fold in half. Oh, that was the wrong side. Fold in half and fold in half again. And that point, I'll put a little press there because we definitely want to know that center. That point will be our center where the whole thing will begin. See, that's a nice point there. I want that snowflake to be here. Now you could do a design here. Look at that. Look how cool that is. You can do either way. See how that's a design? Get that out of the way. So that's one approach. That's pretty. Or turn it this way. And you see how that's a completely different look. It looks like a doily, a lacy doily. That is so pretty. Look at that, and I like that one. So let's go for that one today. Okay, so now the temporary basting glue. I use this for everything. My applique technique, I absolutely love that Roxanne glue base. It's water soluble, so it's not going to be in your project forever. When you do wash it someday, if you wash it someday, it'll come out. Will you wash this wall hanging someday? Probably not, and you don't need to. Don't feel like you have to get that out of there. Now, just a little bit of glue. This is going to secure this to the background. I'm not a big fan of pins. Let's just put a little bit of glue in there. And then we'll set that down. We know where center is, right? Let's just center that right over there. So I've got the tip here and the other tip there. And we will continue to glue those pieces on all the way around until we've formed our star. And then when I come back, I will show you how we're going to take that to the sewing machine and secure that down to the background. Now that I have my diamonds onto the background in the shape of the star, we're ready to go the next step. Now the key that I found when we were trying to come up with a technique that would skip that hand sewing process, and again, don't get me wrong, I love hand sewing, but I'm a busy woman. I'm running a business, I've got kids, I'm trying to get good at golf, and of course I have other hobbies and things I want to do. The monopoly thread by Superior was the product. I kept trying, you know, colored thread, but like I mentioned before, the red would disappear on the red, but what happens when I get to the white part? You see the thread. This is where the monopoly comes in. Now, Superior Thread makes that in the, I guess I'd call that clear, and then they have the smoke. We use that in the top of the machine, and then in the bobbin, we use what's called bottom line. They have this in a multitude of colors. We have the bottom line thread assortment in neutrals, and I think for the most part, this is probably mostly all you need. Unless, let's say, you're going to be working with a lime green or a hot pink. It makes sense to go ahead and get that color in your bottom line thread. But if you're going to be using a multicolored fabric, go ahead and use a neutral, and that's what we have here. So I set my machine to a zigzag stitch, and a reasonable stitch length. I don't want to do anything as dense as a satin stitch, of course. I'm just trying to secure, I want you to come in here and look at this closely. I'm just trying to secure these pieces left and right. Remember that hand sewing that I did where I went through and I did the whip stitch? You're basically just going to be doing that with your machine, where you're just kind of coming left and right, all the way down. And then we're going to come around, and you can go back across. So you could do any way you want. You could come across here and then come across there. I'm sure there's a geometry to, if you start a certain place and go here and there. You see what I'm saying? Where you wouldn't have to really almost ever stop. But I just want to show you one of the stretches to see how invisible this thread is and just how fast this block will come together. So be sure that you check your settings on a scrap piece of fabric and make sure that is what you're looking for. Wide enough to secure both pieces for sure. You don't want a long running basting stitch. Now I want to go ahead and start in my middle, of course. Now my needle is off to the right. You know, with a zigzag, you're going to be left or you're going to be right. So take that into account. So I'm just going to go down just right of center. And the goal is, you can see this line, right? And this line here, you're just going to be stitch, 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 stitch. Just one stitch to the left, one stitch to the right. You keep hopping over that line. We don't want to put too many stitches in there, but we want to put enough that this thing isn't going to ever fall apart on us. Get that thread out of the way. Now when we come to the corner here, I'm going to lift up my presser foot and pivot. Now that I'm here, where I've got fabric and background, I'm going to go onto the diamond, the back, and then onto the background, but just onto the background, not too much, because then it'll show. We want to be mostly onto the diamond and just past the edge here onto the backgrounds. We go down here. When you get to the point right about there, I go ahead and manipulate the machine by hand if I need to. Let's see here. Sometimes you just need to lift it up and pivot and make it be where you want it to be. There we go. And then we'll just start down this run again. And then you would just keep going. From this point, I would have a decision. I could turn and pivot and come across here, and then go here, here, and here, or just keep going around. Whichever approach you want to take would be however you want to finish securing everything. So let me show you what we've got here. I want to show this to you. Now, one thing I want to mention is you may want to use a very fine needle, so that leaves as little hole as possible. Like you can see just a little bit where my needle came down, because I could have used a little bit more of a delicate needle. But look at this. I want you to come in as close as you can with the camera, and you just can't even see those stitches. So that is all there is to doing the no-sew English paper piecing. So be sure to subscribe to YouTube, because we have more fun and innovative DIY quilt and crafting projects for you coming up.